Welcome everyone. My name is Ebony Underwood. I'm the founder CEO of We Got Us Now. Welcome to the third conversation in our We Got Us Now 2022 Actionist Campaign Series. You know, a fundamental priority for We Got Us Now is creating a new vision for our community. And that vision centers around justice, accountability, well-being, and family integrity. And so in this final conversation of our three-part series, we will share how our parents' consistency and commitment to parenting from behind bars inspired each of us on our personal road to advocacy. So I'll begin by saying, hey, Actionists, how are y'all? It's my deepest honor. Hi. It's my deepest honor to be in dialogue with you all today. And before we introduce each of these amazing panelists, for those of you who are new to We Got Us Now, I just want to welcome you and tell you a little bit about what the organization is all about. So We Got Us Now is a national nonprofit advocacy organization that is built by, led by, and about children and young adults with incarcerated parents. And through advocacy, storytelling, and robust programming, we aim to build awareness about the issue children and young adults face as a result of mass incarceration. Our mission is to eliminate the trauma, stigma, and shame of parental incarceration and amplify practices and policies that help keep our families connected, create fair sentencing, and to ultimately end mass incarceration. Our flagship initiative is the We Got Us Now Actionist Leadership Program. It was designed using a strengths-based approach to provide leadership development, advocacy training, tools for civic engagement, and social emotional support for directly impacted daughters and sons with a proven commitment to reform the criminal legal system across the country. So if you'd like to learn more, please visit our website at WeGotUsNow.org. And without further ado, it is my pleasure to join in conversation with our incredible panelists. Hello, Actionists. I'm so excited to be in conversation with you all today. With much to cover, let's just jump in. And so I'll begin with Sylvia. Sylvia, please share with the audience your name and the city you represent.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Ebony. My name is Sylvia Tascone, and I represent Houston, Texas.
Lexi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alexis Abraham, and I'm representing Fairfax, Virginia.
Rakira.
Hello, everybody. I am Rakira Givens, and I am representing Savannah, Georgia.
And Hector.
Hey, everybody. My name is Hector Rodriguez, and I'm from Long Island, New York.
Thank you all for joining us tonight and being part of this very important conversation. The theme for our 2022 Actionist Campaign Series is personal power, and this conversation will be centered around parental guidance from behind bars. So as we get into it, I'd just like to say for each of our panelists, or for the audience to know, each of our panelists have experienced having a parent incarcerated for 20 years or more of their lives. And so we all know that when a father or a mother goes to prison, their children also feel the impact of incarceration. So I'm going to ask each of you, can you please describe to our audience what parenting from your incarcerated parent has been like through the years? Rakira, we'll start with you.
Parenting from my dad has been educational. We sent a lot of letters, a lot of scrapbooks. For a while, when he was far away in ADX, where we didn't visit much, he would make these questionnaires, about 30 to 40 questions, and I would have to answer the questions and send them back. And then whatever questions I didn't know the answer to, or I didn't know who the person was, he would respond with like a magazine article about who they were and what they represented.
Wow, that is so important. Thank you for sharing that. So it was almost like he was giving you tests.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We did that for about 2 years.
Wow. All right, thank you for sharing that. Sylvia, can you please describe to our audience what parenting from your incarcerated parent has been like through the years?
It's been consistent. My father always made sure that he was a part of every milestone, even behind those cement blocks. He called every birthday, every holiday, any major event. But it has been pain and struggle on the outside because, you know, I couldn't get a hug and a kiss with that congratulations that I got over the phone. But he was always consistent, always.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Hector, can you please share?
Yeah, parenting with my father being locked up has been done mostly through 30-minute phone calls. I've always looked forward to like those collect calls. Every time I had like an issue that I needed help with and I needed advice, I would wait for that phone to ring and then I would just talk to him about my issues for those 30 minutes. And then when the automated voice came off, like I would feel at least a little bit better at the end of that phone call. So we did that, and then we also bonded through like a lot of creative things like drawing and writing. So that's been my experience with my father.
Wow. And Lexi, could you please share?
So my dad served 25 years in prison and he was released this year in January. But maintaining a relationship while he was incarcerated was difficult, to say the least. But we maintained it the best we could through the limited channels that were available. But that didn't come without a lot of sacrifice. But one thing I never doubted was how much my dad loved me. He spent, you know, what little money he could earn in the prison, getting us handmade cards or gifts. But, you know, no amount of phone time really could fill the void that was left by not having him in the home.
What would you say would have been like the biggest challenge you've had to face without him being there? Now that he's home, right? Like, what do you feel like was the biggest challenge for you?
It's hard to say what the single biggest challenge was because it was all challenging. But probably the most impactful aspect was really just growing up in a single parent household. It created a lot of instability, financial instability, housing instability, and otherwise, and left me with issues, abandonment issues, anger issues, anxiety, really the full gambit. And it's taken a lot of self-work, a lot of therapy to work through these things, which, you know, the work will really continue for the rest of my life.
Thank you for sharing that. Sylvia, I'd love to ask you the same question. What do you believe is the biggest challenge you've experienced without your father being there?
Very similar to what Lexi just described, very difficult. My biggest challenge was the lack of protection. I was a daddy's girl. I looked just like him. He even gifted me with his late mother's name, Sylvia. And so he didn't play about me. So when he went away, it's like I was left vulnerable to abusers, which caused me to have a distrust for others. I isolated myself a lot, kind of still do. I developed anxiety, you know, PTSD, and other things, but and I feel that if he was home and I had his protection, knowing that I had someone stand in front of me that would make sure no one hurts me, I think my life would have been a lot different in that aspect. So that was my biggest challenge. But the lack of stability, never having a home to call a home, constantly moving, my mom being a single mom, all of that has caused a lot of devastation growing up.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that and your courage to share that. You and Lexi both. Rakira, I'll ask you the same question. What do you feel like was the biggest challenge you've experienced without your dad there?
I would say my biggest challenge has always been not being able to physically connect with my dad. A lot of my experiences have always been with just me and my mom. And I know that like I'm able to communicate with him when he calls or when, you know, we go and visit to express my happiness and my sadness of things that I'm experiencing or was experiencing growing up. But I would say the challenge has always been him not being physically present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Hector, what would you say is your biggest challenge that you face without your dad being there?
I would say the biggest challenge for me is just that lack of guidance because my father has never been free for as long as I've been alive. And while I did have a stepfather, we have a rocky relationship. And like recently, I've been talking to one of my friends who grew up with both of his biological parents in the house. And certain things that his dad taught him, certain ways that he acts, things that he picked up on is something that I had to come into a lot later as I became a man by myself because I didn't have my dad actually show me that. So I feel like a lack of guidance is probably like the biggest challenge amongst other things.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. This is like so insightful because like we all share so many of the similarities. And I'm sure our audience, our viewing audience will understand and hear and relate. So our parents, once incarcerated, are often not considered active participants in our lives. And so we know that to be absolutely false. You all just shared, right? Like how your parents have been extremely active in your life and has always been active in your life. But the facts are that there are no barriers that can stop the power of love, that our incarcerated parents all across the country are actively engaged, as you all just expressed, in their children's lives while behind bars. So building on these facts, I'd love for each of you to just think about, upon reflection, like how can each of you share how your parents have maintained a relationship with you in your life? And how has their love and support inspired your journey to advocacy, justice, and community? Let's start with Lexi.
I maintained a relationship with my dad primarily through phone calls, letters, and visits to the prison. My mom stayed committed to her marriage, and she was committed to making sure me and my sister had a relationship with our dad. So she kept money on his phone so he could always call us. She drove us on the 3-hour trip to the prison nearly every weekend so that we could have visits with him. Really, if it wasn't for my mom's sacrifices, I wouldn't be as close with my dad as we are now. My dad's incarceration directly impacted really every aspect of my journey. It inspired me to become an attorney and fueled a passion for criminal justice reform and really human rights on a broader scale. And doing this type of social justice work, being in those spaces, has really taught me the importance of building communities and the importance of self-care.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. Rakira, I would ask you the same thing. Upon reflection, can you share how your father's relationship with you, like how do you all maintain that relationship? And how has his love and support inspired your journey to advocacy, justice, and community?
Maintaining a relationship with my dad growing up. When I was younger, we wrote a lot because we didn't visit much. He was very far away. We were down in Savannah. He would be far in Pennsylvania, Terre Haute, Indiana, Colorado. So we wrote a lot. As I got older, he had become a little closer. So those 8-hour, 9-hour, 11-hour trips would turn into 7 hours, 6 hours. So we visited more. As I got older, I started to learn about my dad's case from the kids in school. Their parents were talking about it. So I would hear a lot of things about why he was in prison. And by the time I turned 18, I would just ask my dad, like, well, what is the reason for you being incarcerated? Or why do you have a life sentence? We started to talk more about his case, and that would led me to start researching, the law and how a lot of African-American and Latino families have been affected by the war on drugs, and many families are broken because of those laws.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. Hector, you too. How would you say you and your father maintained the relationship, or how has he maintained the relationship with you? And then how has that his love and support inspired you on your journey to advocacy, justice, and community?
Yeah, my father and I basically maintained our relationship through visits and phone calls, but we developed a connection like just through creativity, especially like when I started making my music. I would send him all my lyrics and we would talk about it because the type of music I make is more introspective. And then me explaining like why I'm writing what I'm writing to him helps him get a deeper understanding of who I am, also helps him mature faster. And then we just would talk about things. He's always been very honest with me. And I've always felt like more comfortable even showing him certain things than my own mother, who I live with, just based on like the conversations we were having. So it's helped me on my journey towards advocacy. Because like even in my music, I would like to talk about similar things that other people talk about in music, but as instead of glorifying them, I like to talk about why people do these things and like how it affects us. I feel like spreading that message instead of making it seem like it's cool, showing like the end results. Like I live with the product of the street life, and it's my father being incarcerated, not having both parents in a home, poverty, things like that. So I like to just talk about that, and then also helping my father send letters to lawyers and stuff like that. Just trying to do as much as I can to put him in a better position, and also make sure that I don't end up in his position.
Wow, powerful. Thank you for sharing. Sylvia, would you like me to repeat the question, or are you okay?
Yes, please.
Upon reflection, can you share how your father has maintained a relationship with you in your life? And also, how has his love and support inspired your journey to advocacy, justice, and community?
Very similar to Hector and Kira. The visits, the phone calls, the letters, and like I mentioned before, the frequent phone calls. He would call almost. It's like anytime I was sad, it's almost like he knew something was wrong with his baby girl. And he would call. I'd be like, how would this man know something is wrong? And when I speak to him, he would uplift me and remind me, like, you're my twin, you're my baby. I love you. You got this. You're just like me. You're strong. You can do it. And so that will always help me get through, because my mom, because she went through things herself, so she was always very just tired mom. And by me being a single mom now, I know where she was coming from. So she wasn't as she couldn't just sit still and hear me out and hear what I was going through. So my dad, he had all the time in the world. Sometimes for a few minutes, I would cherish those. And as far as him, his love and support, encouraging me and kind of leading me on to this journey of advocacy. It's like they said initially about the war on drugs. Once I started learning about that and start realizing that things have been put in a certain system that kind of almost gear or lead a lot of our parents into making choices just to survive. And his support and love and him having to go through that and the things that I've been through and missing him so much and what he means to me has pushed me to fight for him. And then by me having 4 sons now, I don't want them to go down that same hole that they have set for them as Black men. There will be Black men one day. And so I educate my sons on everything that I know to prevent them from that. But knowing that my dad has been sentenced to 4 life sentences for distributing or allegedly conspiracy to distribute cocaine is disturbing, because I know people out here that do way worse and get way less time. And it was his first offense. So that always never set right with me, like why I don't have my father because of one mistake. So it's brought me to a journey to just try to figure out like what happened, what went wrong, what is really going on.
Well, you're in the right place. Thank you for being part of the community, and thank you for giving your time and energy to being part of this community with all that you have on your plate. We appreciate you. So I'll move over to our to connection. And so inhumane correctional practices have often eroded family integrity and our incarcerated parents' ability to maintain stable family connections by making phone calls expensive, right? Eliminating in-person visits now with technology, and incarcerating our parents in like distant facilities that make constant visitation like challenging. So Rakira, I'll ask you, can you please share what have been some challenges of maintaining connection to your father, and what are your recommendations for solutions?
I would say my challenges have been and still is the distance. The families are further away from their incarcerated parents, and that's been my experience for a while now. I think that they should move the inmates closer to where their families are, because the distance is just far. And you would want to visit your parents, but if you don't have the funds, or maybe you have to fly, maybe you might be afraid of heights, so I think that families should be closer to their incarcerated parents.
Thank you for sharing. All right, so I'll move into another part of this discussion and talk about encouragement. So Hector, despite the separation of incarceration, your father never allowed the prison walls to like prevent him from being a part of your life. And so over the years, what would you say, what parental advice has your father given to you to keep you motivated and encouraged?
Over the years, my dad just advised me to always go for like whatever I wanted to do and make sure to give my all into everything that I was doing. It didn't matter whether it was something that somebody else wanted me to do or something that I wanted to do. He just wanted to make sure that I was happy and I gave it my all. Also, him being locked up, he had a lot of limited resources, but he showed me how he was able to make a substantial network within his limits. So that also encourages me to every day I'm out in the free world, go out, meet people, make connections, network, and find opportunities for myself the way that I see him find opportunities in a place where there are very few opportunities to be found.
Wow, that sounds really, really powerful. I'm glad to hear that. It's challenging oftentimes for young men to speak out in this community. So thank you for being a voice for other young people and young boys that are going through this so that they can see that they're not alone. Sylvia, I'd like to ask what positive, furthering our conversation on encouragement, I'd like to ask what positive memories of your father's parenting encouraged you to advocate for other children of incarcerated parents?
Like I said before, me and my father is so close and we're a lot alike. His mindset, even behind those bars, a place where most people would describe as dark, dangerous, and inhumane, he always remained humble and a positive life for everybody around him. My dad is well respected. Even when they had him in the max prison, he was well respected. And he always tells me, all a man or woman has is his word. And so that's how he was able to gain his respect, not by trying to act tough or none of that. It's about doing what he says he's gonna do. I use that in my own life as well. So in regards to advocating for others, by me having that urge to want to help others and not feel the pain that I felt, that is what led me to this, because everyone deserves to have their parent or have the guidance or have that protection that I've always longed so much for. And that's what led me to advocate for others who don't have the voice, the capacity to speak out about what's happening to them right now.
Well, again, we appreciate you. Thank you, Sylvia, for your commitment. Lexi, I'm going to to you and just share about the statistics, right, and the need for second chances. So of the 2.2 million people incarcerated in the United States, 50% of them are parents, but the epidemic is that there's a historically invisible population, which consists of us, like 10 million children in the US over the last generation have been impacted by parental incarceration. And at We Got Us Now, we know that when a parent is incarcerated, it's also a life sentence for the family. So Lexi, you were instrumental in advocating for your father's clemency in 2022. Instead of perpetuating a system that has failed, draconian and inhumane policies, how do you believe we can create a justice system that preserves families' connections and promotes safety for all?
Thank you for acknowledging my role in getting his clemency. And thank you for the question. It is a big question, but an important one. What does a criminal justice system that both preserves family connections and promotes safety look like? I don't have an exact answer for that, but I do know what that system doesn't look like. And I know that because I see how broken our current system is. In this country, we have the world's largest prison population, and that disproportionately harms Black and Brown families. Places we can start would be eliminating mandatory minimums, reinstating parole nationwide, ending prison profiteering by defunding private prisons. But ultimately, I think the entire system needs to be reimagined because what we're doing now isn't working. I think there needs to be a focus on providing resources to historically under-resourced populations. I believe that communities that are properly funded and equipped with social programs are the safest communities. And I think that the root cause of most of what is dubbed as criminal behavior is the direct result of poverty or mental health issues, or very frequently both. So while we advocate for criminal justice reforms, I believe we must also advocate for social reforms like affordable housing and universal health care that includes mental health services and addiction services, proportionate funding for schools and other community care services. I believe that a holistic approach that addresses the root causes would create safer communities and ultimately make prisons obsolete.
So I'm going to move forward with our theme, right? Turning our pain into personal power. And this is the holiday season. For me, the holidays were always the most toughest time of the year. Like my father was incarcerated right after Thanksgiving. And for 33 years, it was horrific for me to like just think about spending time with family and him not being there, because the holidays were a big deal for our family. So with that being said, and acknowledging that the upcoming holiday season is coming, Thanksgiving and Christmas and all the other holidays that come along with it that we all celebrate, I just like to recognize that this may be a tough time for those of us separated from our incarcerated parents. And that at this moment, I just like to acknowledge the strength and resilience of all of you for actually being here during this time. And then, I'd love for us, each of you all, to just like share how we've turned this pain into personal power. So the question is, what advice or words of hope do you have for children and young adults with incarcerated parents who are feeling devastation of their parents' incarceration during this holiday season? And what do you want them to know? Rakira, I'll start with you.
My advice would be to continue to stay connected with your parents. Something that I would do growing up during the holiday time would be, we had parades down in Savannah, and we had like house decorations, gingerbread houses, and my mom would make sure we took pictures of everything that was going on around the city, and we would send them to our dad. Another thing we did was we would write him letters of what we wanted for the holidays. We did not think we were going to get it from him, but he would create little like quilts, or they had like these ceramic bears that you could send out in like gift boxes. So those are some of the things that we did to stay connected. And I would just say, just stay connected, whatever cheerful spirit that you are in, just stay in that spirit during the holidays, and try not to think too much about the disconnection that you do have from your parent.
Wow, thank you so much. Wow, that's so good. That's cool that he was able to send you gifts. That's really cool. Lexi, what words of advice or words of hope would you have to share? And what do you want young people to know that are going through this?
Yeah, I would just like to say to folks that are dealing with an incarcerated parent, especially around this time, I want them to know that I see them and that I see their hurt. I would want to tell each of them that they're strong and resilient, and that sometimes the strongest thing that you can do is to be kind to yourself. The pain will always be there, but I pray that you don't let it consume you, and be brave enough to love yourself through it. We're all powerful beyond our own understanding, and I would just want them all to know that we love them and they have a community here, and We Got Us Now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We appreciate you. Sylvia, what advice or words of hope would you have to share for children and young adults who are feeling devastation during this holiday season? And what do you want them to know?
My advice to them would be just stay connected. Like Akira mentioned, stay connected with your parents. Let them know that you are thinking of them, and so that they don't feel so alone in that God-forsaken place, and that you wish that they were with you at that time. But also do some self-care as well. And there are resources like organizations. My dad used to go through like churches. I think it was called like Angel Tree or something like that. So every time during Christmas, we would go to the church where we were able to we tell them ahead of time what presents we would want, and then they would give them to us, and like basically like as if it was coming from my father. And he would call and say, "Hey, what you guys get?" And we'd be able, "Oh, we got this, we got that," So that was very helpful. That made us feel better in the holidays. It almost made us feel like he was there. But I would say, just try to stay positive. I know it's hard. is nothing that anybody can really tell you to make you feel better. And I understand that, because I feel the same way. But just know that this is temporary, because right now a lot is starting to change, and we are pushing for change. And hopefully one day all of our parents will be home, because no one deserves to die in prison.
Thank you so much for saying that, Sylvia. I'll pass it now to Hector. Hector, what words of advice or words of hope do you have for any children and young adults who are feeling devastation from parental incarceration during the holiday season? And what would you want them to know?
I would want to say that although you guys may be physically distant, doesn't mean that you have to be emotionally distant. As everybody said before, staying connected is the most important thing, whether it be through letters, if you have the opportunity to visit, or if you could just pick up those phone calls. That means a lot to make sure that they know you're not forgetting about them. There's a lot of people in there that they feel the holidays even more, especially some people that don't have family. So we know that we do have people that we care about in there, and we should remind them that we care about them. And also, similar to what Sylvia said, everything ends. Everything has an end date, even if you don't see it. I remember being young and hearing that my father had 28 years to life, and I'd be like 6, 7, and he's gonna come home in the future, but I never thought I would actually see the day that he would come home. And then recently getting the parole decision is something that I could have only imagined, but I could never really picture how that would have happened. So it's gonna be tough, but we're strong enough to deal with it.
Thank you, and congratulations to your dad. So happy that he's coming home in 2023. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you all for being here. Rakira, Lexi, Sylvia, Hector. It has been a very deep and insightful conversation. Thank you all for your vulnerability. I am just grateful to be in community with you all. And so this is the final of our series. And for those who have tuned in and want to learn more, a reminder, please do visit our website at WeGotUsNow.org. And if you don't already, please follow us on social media. It's on Twitter and on Instagram, it's we_GotUsNow. On Facebook is WeGotUsNow. And then to our new friends and longtime supporters, we ask you to consider donating to WeGotUsNow this holiday season by purchasing one of those beautiful hoodies. Can y'all show the hoodies? This is a t-shirt, but those are the hoodies. Yeah, these are the hoodies, those hoodies. Can you go and get one? Maybe get somebody one for the holidays. All of the proceeds from these hoodies go directly to supporting We Got Us Now and supporting future actionists. You see, these actionists are incredible. So that would be the end. And I'm so sad to say goodbye. But there'll be so much more for us, and you'll be seeing much more from us in 2023. Thank you all for being here tonight. We appreciate y'all. Thank you.